and welcome to the Beckoning Bookshelf. I am your host, Jeffrey Ashcraft. Roald Dahl books are well beloved by a lot of readers. They're viewed to be classic books, and for good reason. They're very fun books. And several of those books have received movie adaptations, some of which have received more than one movie adaptation. You have Matilda, the BFG, The Witches, James and the Giant Peach, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. But one of the books that has never received a movie adaptation was The Twits. And it's understandably so. It's literally an 80-page book about a couple terrible people pulling pranks on each other. It's not all that emotionally complex. But that has now changed. In October 17th of 2025, Netflix released a movie based on The Twits. And it's part of Netflix's Roald Dahl production line now, because they acquired the Roald Dahl Story Company in 2021, and so they're releasing more Roald Dahl productions. And the Twits movie is part of that. The movie itself was written and directed by Phil Johnston, and he co-directed and was also a screenwriter for Ralph Breaks the Internet, and he was also co-writer for Zootopia. And the movie was also animated by Jellyfish Pictures, if I remember right, Jellyfish Pictures. And they also worked on Boss Baby and The Bad Guys. So, I've seen the movie. How does it compare to the book? Are they very similar? No. Not at all. The only similarities between the movie and the book are pretty much the twits and some of the pranks. That's it. And it's kind of understandably so. Like I said before, there's not a whole lot of emotionally complex content in here. So if you want to do an emotionally complex movie with highbrow themes and lowbrow comedy, well, you're going to have to add stuff. And by the way, that description I gave there, emotionally complex with highbrow themes and lowbrow comedy, that's literally how the movie describes itself in the beginning. Just so you know. So as we talk about it, see if that fits. See if that description is accurate. Am I against the changes? No, not really. Because like I said, there's not a whole lot to the book itself. That's not bad. It's just a fun read. But if you do want to make a story with an actual plot, you are going to have to add stuff. And am I against that? No. But now let's talk about the movie itself. Was the movie good? And does it have a Roald Dahl feel? No and no. Sadly, it's not a good movie. It isn't. Now, it isn't a terrible movie either. The best description of it is literally it's just bland and forgettable. To be completely honest, which is honestly the worst type of film. The worst type of film is a film that you watch and then you just move on with your life and you ever forget you even watched it. At least terrible films, you remember, wow, that movie was horrible. At least you remember it. And they also can be just wildly hilarious, too. But a bland, forgettable film isn't all that great. But why doesn't it feel like Roald Dahl? Well, Roald Dahl books, why are Roald Dahl books so good? Why are they so much fun to read? Well, there's the creative language, there's the dark humor, the sharp wit. There are these creatively interwoven, like, morals that just are part of the story, and they make sense. They're very simple, and they're just part of the story's core. The movie doesn't really have any of that. It makes attempts at dark humor, but it really just comes across as potty humor. It's fart jokes, for the most part. That's it. And Roald Dahl's comedy is a lot more complex than fart jokes. So I'll cover some of the things I didn't like about the movie, why I didn't think the movie worked, and I'll avoid spoilers as much as I possibly can. But then I want to talk about some things I actually thought were brilliant in the movie. Some things that the movie did actually do well and has a lot of potential, because I want to end on a good note. because it's just nicer to end on a good note. But, so what did the movie not work? I'll cover 3 primary things that I really think just brought the movie down. And I think if I were to sum it up all in one thing, I think the movie just lacks a central focus. 100%. Just that's one of its main problems, is it lacks a central focus. Now, one of the main problems with the movie, 100%, are the adults in the film. And I talk about that because in Roald Dahl books, the children are often depicted as the heroes and adults are often depicted as villains. A lot of adults are nasty and terrible people in Roald Dahl books. I mean, you have the Twits right here. Then you have Aunt Sponge and Aunt Spiker. You have Miss Trunchbull, Matilda's parents. All these terrible people, all these terrible adults in these books. So that's why I'm going to talk about the adults in the Twits movie. But all the adults in the Twits movie are just idiots. They're all depicted as moronic. Well, all but 2. And I mean, moronic to a ridiculous level. And I think very few adults in Roald Dahl books are moronic. Most of them are just evil. Most of them are just wicked, nasty people. Not a lot of them are just complete morons. While every adult, except for 2, in the movie is just a complete moron. And I think that really does depict how the producers really just did not understand a Roald Dahl book. If I were to describe what the movie feels like when it comes to Roald Dahl, it really feels like a cheap imitation. Kind of like when we were going over the edits that they made to the Roald Dahl books and how the edits just paled in comparison to Dahl's original writing. It's the same thing here. They just didn't fully understand Roald Dahl's humor and his works, and it's just kind of a failed imitation of it. So, the 2 adults who aren't just complete morons are a news reporter, and the other reason why she isn't a complete moron is because she does nothing in the movie. She literally has no part to play. She's just kind of there. And Mr. Napkin. He is the man who runs the orphanage. Oh, I guess I should actually give a plot summary of the movie, shouldn't I? I should do that. This is my first time doing this, so bear with me. So a plot summary of the movie. So the Twits want to make an amusement park. Okay? That's their main goal in the movie. And the amusement park gets immediately condemned and they pull a prank on the city. Well, this involves 2 orphans, Bisha and Bubsy. And these 2 orphans discover a magical secret of the Twits amusement park. And they steal the secret. Ooh. And so the Twits, of course, go after them. That's the main plot of the movie. There you go. I gave you a synopsis now. So Mr. Napkin, he runs the orphanage. And he's not an idiot, he's just incompetent. He's just kind of a gullible... He has a lot of self-doubt, no self-confidence, and he's just a very gullible person. That's Mr. Napkin, but he means well. He actually cares for the kids. So those are the only 2 adults who aren't completely moronic in the movie. And the movie really does just want to shove in your face the idea that adults are stupid and kids are smart. Literally. On more than one occasion, the movie explicitly states this. And it's just thrown in your face. Just it's really what the movie wants you to know. If there was a takeaway of this movie, it would be that, in my opinion. That adults are idiots and kids are smart. Which... that's not entirely true. Yes, there are some very intelligent children. And yes, there are very stupid adults. But for the most part, adults are smarter than children because adults have lived longer. As an example, how many 10-year-olds can build a shed by themselves? Very few, if any, to be completely honest. But how many adults can build a shed by themselves? Yes, there are some adults who are not intelligent enough to build a shed, but there are several adults who are intelligent enough. So that's a good comparison. So the fact that basically all the adults are just terrible, well, not terrible, moronic people, it's borderline ridiculous. And it's not a good message. It's not a good moral message. And it doesn't understand Roald Dahl's depiction of adults in his books. The second problem is the overall the main moral theme just doesn't fully work. So the main moral theme is empathy versus hatred. And we're told this more than shown this. For example, early on in the film, Bisha complains that she's sad that the world has that people do so many terrible things to each other, and there's so much hatred in the world. And she decides that she's going to be the one to fix it. She's not just going to sit around. But the thing is, we haven't been really shown that. By this point in the movie, we've seen 2 instances of people being terrible, but that's it. In fact, the city that they live in, Tritrot is the name of the city, it's said that it's a perfect place. Like, that's how it's kind of introduced. So we're not really shown how terrible and hateful the world is when Bisha is complaining about how terrible and hateful the world is. And it does, and this hatred does become more of a theme. It does become more prevalent in the town, but that's never addressed. Like, the adults become more hateful and hate things. I'm trying to not spoil anything, but that's never talked about. That's never addressed. And it's pretty much just, hey, they're idiots, and moving on with our lives. That's it. So this empathy versus hatred, it doesn't fully work. There's a lot of plot holes in the moral messaging, particularly one that just really, really infuriated me. If you've seen the movie, you'll know what I'm talking about. So Mr. Napkin, he's the one who runs the orphanage, and he is actually a good character, just incompetent. He truly does care for the children. Well, at one point, not to provide spoilers, but slight spoilers, Mr. Napkin is in trouble. Like, he is actually in trouble. And the children don't help him. In fact, instead of helping him, the children are literally having a party nearby. Why aren't they helping the guy who is literally helping them to survive? I mean, seriously. Mr. Napkin is running the orphanage. Without him, they're on the streets. Why aren't they helping him? And it's not shown that the orphans know that Mr. Napkin is in trouble, but you know that they know. Like, it's not some hidden fact, like, oh, he just vanished and they don't know where he is. No, like, they should know that he's in trouble, given the circumstance of the story, and they don't help him at all. And so, again, this empathy versus hatred and helping others and the children being our moral guides, that it doesn't fit. So there's several plot holes like that with the moral messaging that just don't work. And lastly, the other point that I want to talk about and how the movie didn't work and why it didn't work is I think it has the ideological messaging is a little too complex for the target audience. The movie is clearly targeting kids who are 10 years old and younger. 100%. I'm not part of the target audience. And, of course, I didn't really enjoy the movie, and that's partly because I'm not part of the target audience. But, like, how many children that age are really going to understand empathy? I mean, why not, instead of empathy, talk about kindness and love? Children are going to comprehend those far simpler concepts than the more complex concept of empathy. So I feel like that there was some ideological messaging in there that children just aren't old enough to understand, and that's one of the failing points about it. Also, just a random, well, not a fully random side note, but just to further this point, at the end of the film, there's a really random line about fossil fuels. And it's just completely out of nowhere. And it has literally no place in the movie. Literally, you remove that line, nothing in the movie changes. There's no, like, side plot that doesn't get addressed or anything like that. It's literally just some random line. And the fact that that line is in there, yes, it doesn't really affect the movie all that much, but the fact that the line is there and it doesn't need to be kind of indicates the priorities of the producers, that maybe they were a little more focused on ideological messaging than on storytelling. Now, that's just me theorizing. That's just me considering, critically thinking about the topic. I don't know. But those are my ideas, and that's some of why the movie just really did not work. But now I want to talk about things that the movie did work, that the movie did do well. There's primarily two things that I think the movie, that if they would have just pushed these, I think the movie would have done a lot better. One is Bisha's, primary motivations. Her real motivation. So she claims that this is what she wants to do, but there's secret motivations behind what she wants to do. And I'm not going to spoil it here, but those motivations really kind of fit Roald Dahl. They really do. And I wanted more focus on that. But it really kind of feels like it just takes a backseat to the empathy versus hatred idea. And we don't really get and Bisha's real motivations don't really get fleshed out like they could have been. And I think that's a missed opportunity. But I want to talk about the best part of the movie. The hands down, the most creative, best part, and most Roald Dahl-like aspect of the film. And I think if they run with this idea, I think they could really make a good film from it. That is the sweet toad opposite toad. This guy. So, this creature is the best. This character, I don't know. He is awesome. So if you lick his toes, then, well, as he says, opposite your life goes. So he's a magical creature. And if you lick his toes, if you're, say, a timid person, then you become an outgoing person. If you are a fearful person, then you become courageous. If you're prideful, then you become humble. If you're nice, you become mean. All of that. It's a really fun concept. Also, the toad himself talks, but he talks backwards unless he's talking into a mirror. He's the opposite toad. Sweet toad, opposite toad. It's a really fun name, really fun concept, and I think they could do a whole movie around that. I really do. Have some kid who doesn't have a lot of confidence in himself. He finds a sweet toad, opposite toad, winds up licking his toes for some reason. That could be a really funny instance as to how he winds up doing that. And suddenly he's confident. Suddenly he can do all the cool stuff that he always wanted to do. It's like Peter Parker before and after the spider bite, really cool idea. And then but then he becomes dependent on the toad, right? Because, I need the toad to be confident. And then, of course, he learns that, no, he doesn't need the toad to change his life. He can change his life himself. He has always had the power to do so. And that's a really good moral message that a lot of us can be reminded of more than once. And I think there's a really good story potential there. And the cool part is, to my knowledge, the sweet toad, opposite toad is an original creation for this movie. I'm unaware of this creature being in any of the Roald Dahl books. Now, if he is, please show me. Tell me where. But I'm unaware of him being in any of the other works. So, if it is an original idea, that's great. Run with it. I would love to see more of the sweet toad, opposite toad. I would love to see a whole concept just around that simple. Well, I'd love to see a whole story just around that simple concept. It would be awesome. So, should you watch the movie if you're a fan of the Twits, if you're a fan of Roald Dahl? You could if you want, but you wouldn't be missing anything if you decided to just not watch it. It's not that spectacular. Again, it really is just a forgettable thing, and it doesn't feel like Roald Dahl, and you'd be better by just reading the book, to be completely honest. That doesn't mean it doesn't have potential, and maybe, hopefully, we'll see more of the sweet toad opposite toad in the future. It's so much fun to say that. The sweet toad. Such a good, really good concept. Love that concept. So that's it. That's all I have. Hopefully that this went, hopefully you understood what I was saying, and hopefully this first movie adaptation episode went well. I'm still trying to figure out the formatting here, still trying to figure out the everything. Let's just be completely honest. I'm just planning things out as I go. So, if you have seen the Twits movie, tell me what you think of it. And if you haven't, tell me what you think of the book again. I always love to hear about that. And if you encountered a sweet toad opposite toad, would you lick his toes? I'm just curious. Thank you for being here. Thank you always for being here. You have yourself a good day, and go find yourself a good book.